Why are you excited to be here tonight?
Because I'm just excited.
Yeah. No other explanation. Now, I do believe, tell me the truth. Is it true that your dad has a ringside seat, but didn't get you guys ringside seats?
That is true, but it's because of his YouTube channel, okay? It's his YouTube, okay?
Her dad's an influencer. Let him go, guys. But your dad's awesome, right?
Yeah.
See, he's awesome!
In the tradition of THESZ, in the tradition of Jack Briscoe of the Briscoe Brothers, of Dory Funk Jr., or Terry Funk, the man who will not die, after the real nature boy, Buddy Rogers, upstairs tonight, from the Harley races to the Barry Windhams to the Ric Flairs, I accept this heavyweight title. Wait a second. And Kerry Von Erich, and the fat man himself, Dusty Rhodes. This is it tonight, Dad. God, that's beautiful. And Ricky Steamboat. And they can all kiss my ass. Because I'm not the man who accepts a torch to be handed down to me from an organization that died RIP 7 years ago. The franchise, Shane Douglas, is the man who ignites the new flame of the sport of professional wrestling. Tonight, before God and my Father witness that I declare the franchise as the new ECW Heavyweight Champion of the world. We have set out to change the face of professional wrestling. So tonight, the new era begins. The era of sports professional wrestling. The era of the franchise. The era of ECW. How'd that work out for you, Shane? Honestly, how'd that work out for you, Shane? 30 years ago today, 30 years ago today, ECW was launched on the backs of the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is J Cal, and each and every Tuesday, I come to you to talk NWA wrestling. Notice how we don't talk about ECW. Notice how we don't talk about Shane Douglas or Tommy Dreamer or Rob Van Dam. We kind of do talk about Raven, though. We also talk about Steve Corino and Rhino. But that's because they're former NWA World Heavyweight Champions. And 30 years ago today, the NWA World title, the 10 pounds of gold? The 10 pounds of gold was unceremoniously tossed aside. When Shane Douglas threw the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship to the ground, many people had pontificated about the death of the National Wrestling Alliance. Didn't happen. It is the year 2024, 30 years later. And what are we doing, right? we are heading towards the 76th anniversary of the National Wrestling Alliance. 76 years. Most of you have not been alive for 76 years. Most of you do not remember a time where there was not an NWA. We lived before ECW. We have lived after ECW, excuse me. But there is no NWA. Let me rephrase that. There is no ECW. I'm jumbling up my words here. There is no ECW today, but there still is an NWA. And that's built on the backs of guys like, well, let's just look at it. EC3, who celebrates 1 year as NWA World Heavyweight Champion. We don't get to EC3 unless Tyrus carries that belt for some time. And before Tyrus, we don't get there without Trevor Murdoch. And we don't get to Trevor Murdoch without Matt Cardona. We don't get to Matt Cardona without Trevor Murdoch again. We don't get to Trevor Murdoch without Nick Aldis. We don't get to Nick Aldis without Cody Rhodes and Nick Aldis again, and Tim Storm and Jack Stane and Hiroshi Tenzin and Rob Conway and Satoshi Kojima and Rob Conway and Tokyo Monster Kahagas and Scrap Iron Adam Pearce and Colt Boom Boom Cabana and Adam Pearce and Cabana and Adam Pearce and the Sheik and Colt Cabana and Adam Pearce and Blue Demon Jr. and Adam Pearce and Christian Cage and Sting. And now I'm going to get out of order here, but you just follow along, play along like I'm doing it right. And Rhino and Abyss and Jeff Jarrett like 3 times and Ron Killings 2 times and AJ Styles like 4 times and Shinya Hashimoto and Dan the Beast Severn twice. Ken Shamrock. I can't forget about Ken Shamrock. And every single person who held that title from 1995 when Chris Candido won a tournament to become world's heavyweight champion until now, that back has been built over and over and over again. Where do we see ECW now? Where is Shane Douglas now? And the sad answer is just a footnote in history, ladies and gentlemen. Part of a long storied past with Todd Gordon and Howard Brody and Dennis Corluzzo and backroom shenanigans and disagreements and New Japan Pro Wrestling exiting the NWA and World Championship Wrestling exiting the NWA. And all of this to say that where the NWA is today was built on the backs of the men who carried the 10 pounds of gold. And when Shane Douglas unceremoniously tossed the belt down, he thought he would cripple the NWA, thought he would launch ECW. And in the interim, he did. ECW, it wouldn't be long before ECW would end up on the Nashville network, TNN, Spike TV, as it would be called later. The stars of ECW would go on to WCW and the WWE, where the NWA would kind of flounder, right? After the franchise threw the belt down, it took them nearly a year to crown a new champion in Chris Candido. And he was, although a fantastic wrestler, it didn't feel like the NWA got behind him. And there wasn't much of an NWA at that time. It was Dennis Corluzzo. It was Steve Rickert in New Zealand. Howard Brody had just got in. We had just seen the last of Jim Crockett Jr. in Dallas. And so you had Chris Candido, who he wasn't even getting title defenses in his own home promotion of Smoky Mountain Wrestling with James E. Cornette, the man who you would think would love to promote the NWA World Heavyweight title. And then as a hero in a shining armor that is the Octagon, we had Dan the Beast Severn, who would not only win the Ultimate Fight UFC 5 and become the UFC Ultimate Fighting Champion, he would also become the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And his entourage of Al Snow and Dennis Coralluzzo would tromp to the ring carrying the 10 pounds of gold and his super fight title and his UFC 5 title, thus creating the greatest interest in the NWA since its formation, with THESZ unifying title belts in the early 50s, excuse me. And if it wasn't for Shane Douglas dispatching the title to the ground, I don't know that we would have ever gotten Dan the Beast Severn as World's Heavyweight Champion. We never would have seen the 10 pounds of gold on a Monday Night Raw. We'd have never seen the 10 pounds of gold showcased on UFC events. Maybe there never would have been an interest to have the World's Heavyweight Champion head to Japan and wrestle deathmatch gods like Goto. I think it was Goto. Now I don't have it written down in front of me. I forgot. But needless to say, it was kind of a blessing in disguise. It was a curse that became a gift. After Shane Douglas tossed that 10 pounds of gold down, and the work that Dan Severn and James E. Cornette and Dennis Coralluzzo and Howard Brody and all the NWA members that would follow suit, including Antonio Inoki, Ken Taylor, Mike Porter, Jim Miller, all of this would create the foundation to what the NWA is today. It would give us title runs from guys like Steve Corino, Mike Rapata, Shinya Hashimoto. I mean, there was a lot of names in there that I can't possibly remember all of them off the top of my head. But yes, this was a very interesting time for the NWA. And 30 years ago today, it happened. And unbelievably, it just happens to coincide with our World's Heavyweight Champion having a 1-year reign as World Heavyweight Champion. I have to acknowledge and give props to EC3 for what he's done in 1 year as World Heavyweight Champion. I was trying to collaborate today with, going through title histories, going through cage match, going through my own personal records of how many title defenses that our pal EC3 has had. And, he has stated that it's somewhere near 75. And although there is a lot of title defenses, I don't think he's quite at 75. Cage Match lists him at 41 since winning the championship. I know that there's about a dozen or so matches that aren't listed on Cage Match. Even the School of Morton, Ricky Morton's battleground for training pro wrestlers, featured over 5 NWA title matches, 4 of which happened in a weekend, 4 matches in 3 days for our World's Heavyweight Champion. So, needless to say, the man who's taken the title to Australia, who has taken the title to England, to Italy, to France, to Southern California, to Canada, all over the United States, we have to celebrate the 1-year reign of EC3 and acknowledge that a lot can change in 30 years, including the demise of Extreme Championship Wrestling, the territory that was NWA Eastern Championship Wrestling, and celebrate that the 10 pounds of gold still reigns supreme. It's still here. So, welcome to the Pre-Party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is Jay Callan. Each and every Tuesday, I come to you to talk about the NWA, NWA Power, and of course, signature live events. That one is coming up this weekend. Are you going to be in Philly, the 2300 Arena? Have you made your plans? Have you bought your tickets? Your boy Jay's coming in hot on Friday morning. I'll be there. And I hope to see a lot of you guys there too. We have hats. No, we don't have hats. We have shirts. We have 76th anniversary Wrestling Summit shirts that were made For you, the hashtag NWA fam, I've got extras. I'm gonna be bringing them. I have a bag. If you want a shirt, get into my DMs. Hopefully, I have one that'll fit you. Hopefully, I have one that's your size. But I want to say what's up first and foremost to my friends in the chat. First and foremost, I've been talking for about 15 minutes now. I want to say hello to my friends in the chat. Of course, Willie Bowen's here with his Tyrus joke of the day. Tyrus just lost his picnic pie, eating heavyweight championship title for being inactive. You know, and that's the thing. Maybe the best thing that EC3 has done as world's heavyweight champion is retired Tyrus, right? Because retires. That's actually clever. Retyrus hasn't been inside of an NWA ring since his last match. We haven't seen Tyrus in well over a year. And maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. I'm kind of glad that the NWA hasn't rested on its laurels. You know, I'm kind of glad that although Tyrus, I don't think he was anyone's favorite wrestler, I'm kind of glad that he has lived up to his promise of, you know, exiting the NWA and not looking back. I know he's joked around on his podcast, The Three Wise Men, about a Legends deal with the NWA, but no such thing exists currently. And we haven't seen Tyrus, not as an ambassador, not as a former world champion, nothing. And there goes Sabu. See, just like Sabu to dive off of something. Anyways, Lou THESZ is in the house. What's up, Lou? What's up, Willie? Steve G's here. Our pal Jeremy's here. Good afternoon, Alliance fam. He's in the chat. You better respect Jeremy. Jeremy is a member of the other Alliance guys, and although they have been on hiatus for a few months, at some point, I hope that the band gets back together again, maybe without Tim, but Dave Scooby and Jeremy definitely have a home here on the Alliance blog, radio network, podcasting, on our YouTube channel, for crying out loud. Why am I trying to say things that aren't true? Rosville's in the house. What's up, Rosville? Jeremy following up the Tyrus joke. Willie, he's inactive due to filming TLC's new show, My Metric Ton Life. Damn. Willie Bowen, like I said, he's here. Steve G's here. Jeremy's here. Rosville's here. Willie Bowen acknowledges that Dan Severn, Shinya Hashimoto, Giant Baba, Noya Ogawa, Tim Storm, Rob Conway, Brent Albright, Adam Pierce, etc., all former NWA World Heavyweight Champions. This is true. And I lived through a big chunk of that era. So have you guys. But this podcast, this live stream, this connection to the alliance-wrestling.com, we covered all that. The genesis of the Alliance formed when the NWA reclaimed the glory. The whole purpose of this website started off just to find out what was going to happen to the 10 pounds of gold. I was blogging about it. I'm first on a website called the Xanga, Xanga. Do you guys remember that? I blogged under the name Abdominal Stretch because I thought that was a funny name, and it was kind of like the antithesis of the Death Valley Driver, which was a popular message board at the time. And we were covering the NWA because no one else was doing it. The NWA had this huge announcement that they were taking the 10 pounds of gold and the tag team titles back from TNA. And although the initial announcement had a lot of coverage, the subsequent following news didn't. The tournament really didn't get a lot of acknowledgement. The wrestlers that were named for the tournament. I mean, look, former or current AEW World Champion Bryan Danielson was the favorite to win the 10 pounds of gold. You had guys like Claudio Castagnoli, Mikey Nichols, Fergal Devitt. I mean, these aren't just Finn Balor for those of you who watch the WWE. These aren't guys who are nobodies. I mean, these are guys who are titans of the industry, right? I mean, you know, Finn Balor is a former WWE Undisputed Champion, right? Or whatever Universal Champion. I think that's what it was, right? He's been in the WWE for quite some time. You know, Claudio Castagnoli, former Ring of Honor World Champion recently, you know. Brent Albright, you know, he kind of fell by the wayside. Osama Nishimura was in this tournament. You know, Mike, I I just lost what I was going to say. Mikey Nichols, the Australian former WWE competitor, wrestled for NXT, also currently in New Japan Strong and New Japan, teaming with Shane Haste, the New Japan Strong and IWGP Tag Team Champions. You know, there was a lot of really solid talent in that tournament. That's what started the genesis of this channel, initially as a blog, and then later as a podcast, and now as your weekly live stream. It's all based off of that. Jeremy, I haven't looked at the poll. I know that we had some votes on the Discord and votes on the channel. If you guys are wondering what Jeremy's talking about, we took a poll to see which hat gets made next. There's been a huge demand for a red hat. We're trying to figure out if it was going to be a white logo or a black logo. But the last time I looked, I haven't tallied all the votes, and it's not like there's that many votes, but so far what's leading the charge is the black on red. It wouldn't be that hard to make both available. I just, clogging up the store a little bit. Willie Bowen brings up Colt Cabana. Yes, Cabana too, of course. Noob is here. What is up, Noob? Rob Rosville brings up Thorpe. I think you meant to say Tharp. Bruce Tharp. His time as the owner of the National Wrestling Alliance. And again, whether you like Bruce Tharp or not, you have to at least acknowledge that what he did essentially by consolidating memberships into licenses created a one unilateral owner of the NWA. Even if he had business partners that he jettisoned after time, had he not done that, then there would have been no way that William Patrick Corgan could have been the sole owner of the NWA today. He might have had a territory. He definitely could have owned a territory. He could have had Chicago, of course. But for him to have purchased the NWA, that doesn't happen unless Bruce Tharp sues to get control of the of the NWA. So that's a whole other thing in and of itself. Let's see. Willie brings up Blue Demon, Rhino, AJ Styles. I hope I got everybody. I know there's in that list, I know that I forgot some names, but of course, Steve Corino, Mike Rapata, the cat from the UK. There's a couple of guys I forgot, but that's pretty good from just off the top of my head. It's interesting. I have that much NWA knowledge just off the top of my head. That's pretty cool. Jeremy says, hey, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, leave a comment. It all helps the algorithm. Did Dan Severn wrestle any wrestlers in that crappy WWE? So you got to remember too, Willie, at the time when I'm going to answer your next question in just a second. At the time when Dan Severn was world's heavyweight champion, he never actually defended the 10 pounds of gold in the WWE. His initial entrance upon the WWE, he had the title, because remember, that was during the time that Jim Cornette had the NWA invasion. So we saw the North American title defended on television, first with Jeff Jarrett and later the Widowmaker, Barry Windham, or I think maybe even Blackjack Windham at that time. He had a short run with that title. They didn't do a whole lot with it, the NWA North American title. The NWA tag team titles initially were brought in with the Rock and Roll Express. I also think that at some point the New Midnight Express might have had the titles. I don't remember exactly. I do know that the Headbangers, Mosh and Thrash, won the titles, and that was a really interesting time for the NWA in that era. And honestly, I don't think that happens without the star power of Dan Severn and Jeff Jarrett. The Rock and Roll Express up until that point really hadn't had much of a tenure with the WWE. So it kind of brought them into the fold. And that hadn't been done in a long, long time. They had never been a regular WWE tag team. And it also showcased those titles. And what's interestingly enough is, like, just a few years earlier, WCW, the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title was part of the J Crown, right? So the IWGP title, the WWF Junior Heavyweight title, and the NWA Junior Heavyweight title, and there was a bunch of other titles mixed in there that I don't know off the top of my head, but that title was defended on Nitros and a few of the pay-per-views at the time with Ultimo Dragon, and so that was kind of cool too, to have that kind of that title show up in the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title was being defended on Nitro, and then just a few years later, the tag titles were being defended, and the North American title were being defended on WWE programming. I know that a lot of you hate the WWE, and that's fine. I'm not asking you to like it. I just think it's pretty cool that a promotion that died 7 years before Shane Douglas threw the belt down was still being those titles were still being defended on the competitions program. Then Willie also brought up the fact that Jerry Flynn, I don't think Jerry Flynn ever held the title. I think you're getting a little bit mixed up. I know that Jerry Flynn was in a tournament to crown the champion, and I think that's the title. That's the tournament that I want to say that Mike Rapada won, but also we didn't, Sabu was also a former world heavyweight champion for a brief time, Steve Corino, but not Jerry Flynn. He never held the title. Yes, Dodie, I too am very excited to see our world's heavyweight champion defend the title in the Ugandan Mud wrestling promotion, that Soft Ground Wrestling Alliance. I think that's what it's called. Although I'm very much hoping to see something change with the world's heavyweight champion this weekend. I think it'd be very, very cool to see EC3 with the 10 pounds of gold in Africa. I don't know that the world's heavyweight championship has ever been defended on the continent of Africa. If it has, it escapes me who did it. But I was there firsthand when Nick Aldis defended the title in China. We know that the title has been defended in South Korea, of course, Japan quite regularly, even though it's been, not as often as I think a lot of people would have hoped. We've seen it defended in Australia. We've seen it defended, of course, in North America. We've seen it defended in Europe. But Africa, that's kind of cool. There's only a few more places left that I think have not had a world title defense. And I don't know if Russia is ready for pro wrestling, but could you imagine if our world's heavyweight champion defended in Russia at some point? Or imagine if the 10 pounds of gold was defended in a place like India. India has a huge appreciation for pro wrestling. There's a lot of, even TNA at one point had their sister promotion, Ring Ka King, in India. And I just imagine having the NWA World's title there would be kind of a cool thing. At least I think so. Did you have a chip today? What do you mean, Roz? What do you mean, Roz? Yeah, the NWA is still here, and ECW isn't. Chris, yeah, I'm gonna go to the Suplex Vintage to see the live wrestling that they're having. Now, I've heard that there's rain in the forecast, so I don't know how that's going to impact the live wrestling event, but I want to meet there, because if there's wrestling to be seen, man, I love. I'm not one of these guys that have like a bucket list for wrestling shows. Okay, maybe I do. I want to see a wrestling event in Madison Square Garden. I want to see a wrestling event in Japan, right? I want to see wrestling wherever I travel. Like I've been to Mexico multiple times to see Lucha Libre, both in Mexico City and Tijuana. I would love to go to Monterrey and see Lucha Libre in Monterrey. I'd love to go to Puerto Rico and see, the World Wrestling Council or IWA live, right? When I go to Scotland next year, I'm going to talk to Fiona and see who's running at that time. And hopefully, fingers crossed, the stars will align. But what I do think is pretty cool is just, the places that I've been able to watch wrestling. Last year at the anniversary show, I went to Dave Scooby and I Dave drove. I rode with Dave Scooby to go to Columbia, Illinois to see WrestleMax, which was a promotion I'd never seen. I never even heard of before, but they had an event and I wanted to be there for that. I checked it out. It was a good show. It had a good time. I've been to Atlanta twice to see wrestling, both championship wrestling from Atlanta and the NWA Power tapings. So I've seen wrestling in Atlanta 3 times. I've been to Nashville a handful of times to watch the NWA. I've been to Mesa, Arizona to watch championship wrestling from Hollywood. And before that, when they were NWA Hollywood, I went to Yuma, Arizona to see pro wrestling. I've been to Las Vegas, Nevada for wrestling. I was in New Jersey last year, Glassboro, for Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. So anytime I could check wrestling off and see something new that I haven't seen before, I'm very excited. So if Suplex is going to have that live show on Saturday at 12:30, man, I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys will come out there with me. I'll make sure to bring my the Alliance merch. If you're coming, I have shirts to give away. I'm not asking for you to buy anything, but I'll have a few shirts to hand out, and that'll be cool. Journey 2 thoughts. We'll get to Journey. I did not watch all of Journey. I did see the women's match that was not the elimination match that they kept saying it was. And I did, of course, see the world's heavyweight title defense. I was celebrating my daughter's birthday, and it just didn't line up, and I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it. But we'll talk about Exodus Pro in just a few minutes. Rosville says all the territories outside of Power and Corrigan are better. A lot of love for the JCP. Tommy Rich had a short reign as world heavyweight champion. Absolutely. Willie Bowen says pro wrestling in Brazil and Argentina. Yeah. EC3 could defend the belt too in Mexico. You know, I feel like, especially with Mecha Wolf, man, the Crash. The Crash is one of my favorite wrestling promotions, and I love the Crash. It's a lucha libre promotion in Tijuana. It features talent from, the Southern California, from the U.S. independent scene, as well as talents from Lucha Libre AAA and a lot of the local SoCal Tijuana wrestling stars. And I feel like an EC3 versus Mecha Wolf match for the 10 pounds of gold in Tijuana at the auditorium would be electric. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. But, man, look, you don't want to use Mecha Wolf? That's fine. You know who's a hero in Tijuana? Bestia. Former 2-time NWA World Tag Team Champion Bestia. Sace. Woohoo! That would be electric. The crowd would go nuts. They don't really know who the NWA is in Tijuana. Look, as far as I know, I don't even think they can watch the show. I don't think they could watch Power in Tijuana. But god damn, pardon my French, but holy shit, that would be amazing. I would love to see that happen. Love to see EC3 take the title to anywhere in Mexico, really. Like, look, I know CMLL is currently really working closely with both New Japan Pro Wrestling and AEW. I know that AEW does have a relationship with Lucha Libre AAA. That's why the Crash makes so much sense to me, because they're not really tied directly to AEW. They're not, or excuse me, to Lucha Libre AAA. They can kind of do their own thing. Also, EMW's tied a lot more closer to AAA, and they still bring in guys who are not from AAA all the time. So, yeah, that would be very interesting. Of course, since you saw WrestleMax, then I'll be campaigning for Calvin Tankman and Kevin Lee David. Look, I loved Calvin Tankman. I don't know where he fits in the NWA, but Calvin Tankman's a bad dude. I've seen him twice now. I got to see him in San Francisco earlier this year, and that dude is double tough, double bad. Yes, I'm all about bringing Calvin Tankman in. I don't know where he fits with the NWA. He fits in WrestleMax or in Prestige or West Coast Pro Wrestling or Deathlock Pro, because he's a relatively big dude in a sea of guys who are, 5'7", 5'9", 160 pounds soaking wet. Calvin Tankman is not as impressive when you put him next to Jack Stane. I'm sorry. Jack Stane is a beast, and he's my measuring stick. Calvin Tankman versus Trevor Murdoch. Calvin Tankman looks like he'd be outclassed. My opinion, I could be wrong. Let's see. You need to see the entire Journey show. It was great. And Brandon Beretta for the NWA. Roswell seconds the love for Brandon Beretta. Bobby Bettino's got my back, and he says he'd like to see EC3 versus Mecha Wolf. That's what we should start campaigning. The winner of the 76, be it EC3 or Tom Latimer, whoever walks away as world champion, I want them to defend in Tijuana. I want to be at that show. Let's make it happen. Mecha Wolf, are you listening? How do we make this happen? I'll put $20 on it. I'll put $100 on it. Let me be the special ring announcer, and I'll do 1,000. Let's go. Overmetal says, so what have I missed? The main event was fire. How can Richard Holiday not be signed? Fire? It was good. I wouldn't say it was fire. Yes, big dude, because we need to make NWA into the land of the giants. I mean, yeah, look, I'm all right with the way that the NWA looks now. You've got EC3 literally harvesting the biggest dudes he can find from the Control Your Narrative, aka Exodus Pro facilities. They're getting some big dudes that we are like PB Smooth. You guys saw him this past weekend. They are grinding it out there, making superstars for the NWA. That's what we have been hoping for. But then you've got the School of Morton. You've got the Jacobs Pritchard Wrestling Academy. And I mean, it's all kind of funneling into the National Wrestling Alliance, which is good. And that's why we're seeing a different kind of star in the NWA. Bobby Batista says Calvin Tankman can go to TNA, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, man. I'm not against any of that. All right, so let's talk about... Sorry, that's some stuff on my shirt bothered me. Let's talk about Exodus Pro. Let's talk about this past weekend. Richard Holiday and EC3. Now, the war of words between the two I felt was very compelling. Richard Holiday is a guy that I have got to see up close and personal through the United Wrestling Network, through Epic Pro Wrestling Los Angeles. And if you guys have been watching, Exodus Pro's social media, you have seen that Richard Holiday has been an integral part of that promotion since they started. So to me, there was this natural evolution, this natural storytelling that they were putting with EC3 and Richard Holiday. And maybe some of you could see it early on. Maybe some of you did not predict it right away. But Richard Holiday was always going to be this person who would later challenge EC3. And I don't believe that their rivalry is finished, not by a long shot. However, I feel like this was a huge, huge missed opportunity. And this becomes one of those things where we tried to outthink Billy Corgan. We tried to play Booker. And maybe you didn't, but I did. I thought that this would have been the perfect opportunity to really shake some shit up. This would have been a good time to put your finger on the hose and spray everybody. This was a time to make things a little bit more different, a little bit more unpredictable, a little bit more wilder. And they didn't. And they probably never were going to do that. And it probably never was going to happen. But imagine, if you will, had Richard Holiday won the 10 pounds of gold literally 1 week before that title was set to be defended on a signature live event. Now, if this would have been a pay-per-view era, this would have been a great time to do something like that. But again, there is no pay-per-view. This is essentially the 76th anniversary show. The signature live event is nothing more than a TV taping. I get it. We've had Poyo on this show. We've had a few other NWA talents on this show and speak to the importance of the signature live event. But under the current format, under the current distribution deals, these signature live events feel zero different. They feel there is no difference between a signature live event and just a regular studio TV audience. I mean, the difference is, I guess, is just the venue. The wrestling show does not feel any different to me. When I'm watching Sam Adonis mail in a performance with EC3 at the Crockett Cup, I wasn't excited about that match. I wasn't excited about it going into it because there was no build for it. And then I was sitting there in the arena just thinking, man, I've seen so much better from Adonis and I've seen so much better from EC3. Why are these guys just mailing it in? And then I saw EC3 live in my backyard in Lake Elsinore, California against Honest John. And that match to me was so much better than the match that he had with Sam Adonis. I was hoping to see more of that this weekend. A big, huge match with Richard Holiday in EC3. And I felt like it was a much, much better match than what he had with Sam Adonis in Forney, Texas at the Crockett Cup. It was, but I still feel like it was a little lackluster. And maybe it's because in my mind, I had already booked that Holiday was going to win it, that there was going to be some sort of screw job, that something bad was going to happen. Holiday would win the title and the rematch would be for Philly. Obviously that didn't happen. So the conclusion of the match, I felt was a little disappointing. I'm not a big fan of the 1% as a finishing move. I mean, I guess it's an easy hold for EC3 to do. He doesn't have to lift up anyone over his head. It's not some sort of submission hold. It's a real quick end the match. But I just don't like the hold that much. To me, it's Jeff Jarrett's stroke. It just looks like an overly complicated way to slam your opponent to the ground that isn't really all that effective. Granted, I've never been slammed to the ground by EC3. I know that dude is jacked. I knew that dude is huge. But I don't think if he slammed my head into the wrestling mat that it would knock me out for a 3 count. Just saying. So, yeah, Exodus Pro, I mean, we all, most of us kind of knew that Tiffany Nieves, La Princesa, was going to become the NWA Exodus Pro Women's Champion. Now, that title initially was going to be a joint title that would represent both Mission Pro and Exodus Pro. It doesn't seem like that is going to be the case anymore. It looks like it's just going to be a company title for Exodus Pro, which is, I mean, that's fine too. Tiffany Nieves is an extremely talented wrestler. She has a great persona. Her promos are really good. She has a great look. She's going to do Exodus Pro wonders as their champion. I like the fact that Kylie Paige was in that match as well. I feel like she represents the National Wrestling Alliance very well too. I still think that when it's all said and done, I think Kylie Paige has the biggest upside of all the women in the NWA currently. So at least to the point of Exodus Pro, I think there's a lot of positives about the 2 matches that I saw. I think there's a lot of the positives about having a territory event on the NWA YouTube that was made available for everybody to watch. I think that's really cool. I think that's good for the international fans who probably have felt a little bit jaded because they can't watch the NWA regularly via Power without, a lot of extra steps. I think that's a good move, and I hope it's something that they continue to do. Offline, I've talked to some of you guys, James H. Jackson, Big Chris Dog. We've talked offline, of course, Jay and DKM, and we've expressed that this would be a good idea to do like regularly for the territories. Have Joe Kazana Promotions do a 3-hour event for the NWA YouTube channel. Have NWA Chicago do a 3-hour event for the NWA YouTube channel. And it's the same with Crossfire, maybe even with WLW. But again, it just has to make sense for all the parties. And I don't know that it does. So I guess what I'm saying is I think overwhelmingly Saturday night was a success. I think overwhelmingly this was good for both Exodus Pro and the NWA. It was not the result that I was hoping for. And I guess that might have left me a little bit, maybe a little bit disappointed. But I guess it's my own fault. It's my own fault for thinking that that the synergy between Exodus Pro and the NWA was great enough that this would have been a perfect time to work in this title match. Now, again, I don't think it's the last we've seen of Richard Holiday, and maybe, just maybe, Billy Corgan will reach out to Richard Holiday and we'll see more of him in the NWA after the 76th anniversary show. But I just felt like it didn't deliver what I wanted. And I got to preface it by saying, like, realistically, we were all hoping for too much. If anyone thought that match was going to lead directly to the 76, you are hoping for too much. And that sucks to say it, but it's just true. It's true. If you thought that Holiday was going to win the title and then come to 76 and defend against EC3 or Tom or both, like, you're hoping for a lot. And Temple's learning tree, if adversity is ice cream, always put a cherry on top. Hey, I'm a PMA guy, positive mental attitude, PMA all day. So I can appreciate that sentiment. Who even watches the NWA nowadays? My friend, you are in a live stream, a podcast dedicated to the National Wrestling Alliance. Literally, we are the pre-party for NWA Power. The whether you watch it before or after, we are pre or post unofficial show for the NWA. So clearly, there are some people who watch this show. I have over 5,000 subscribers on this channel, and most of which are dedicated NWA fans. So I appreciate the commentary, but yeah, there's a lot of people who watch the NWA. Dodie says, so is EC3 a better booker than William Patrick Corgan? We know that Joe Kazan is, and we need to discuss Kenzie and Brian Idol next. Did anything shock you at Exodus Pro? Did anything blow you away? I was excited about the event because I thought that it would have repercussions for the 76th anniversary show. It seemingly has not. I don't think Tiffany Nieves will show up with her newly minted NWA Exodus Pro Women's Championship. I don't think we're gonna see. I don't think we're gonna see. I don't think we're gonna see the tag team champions who were recently crowned. I don't think PB Smooth is going to be defending his Midwest title. I don't think any of those things are going to happen. So it was an event that I think was good. And I think we have to give credit to EC3. He put together a show that from top to bottom, at least from what you guys are saying, is that, yeah, it was a pretty good event. I have not been overly thrilled with how the NWA is booked currently. I look at this pay-per-view, and let me see here as we approach the pay-per-view, and we're going to talk more about this tomorrow night as we'll go over our predictions and all of that for the 76th anniversary show. But some of the matches that are here scheduled, the Burke Invitational, it's a little pedestrian, like Holly Hood, Haley J. That's a pretty big name that is currently a free agent. I know some of you guys have mentioned Kayla Rossi. I've never seen Kayla Rossi wrestle. Natalia Markova being in it, La Rosa Negra, Pescadilla, all of this is just kind of pedestrian for me. I'm not excited about the Burke Invitational. I think the most interesting thing would be if Hollywood Haley J wins, because that's an outsider winning, and that Hollywood Haley J has a presence outside of the NWA that could bring some people in. But honestly, I'm predicting Natalia Markova wins this match and challenging for the Burke. Probably at that looks that kill the pay-per-view in December. So I'm not super excited about that match. I'm looking at the US tag match again. That's something that's, again, very pedestrian. It just feels like you're throwing tag teams in there to get them on television, on your show. Not super excited about that. The junior heavyweight number one contenders match, I like Jack Cartwheel. I think it'll be a fun match. Alex Misery has been fun so far. That could be a very fun match. The tag match between Storm and Dane versus Zion and Dumas, again, very pedestrian. I don't care about it. It's boring. Thrillbilly Silas Mason versus Colby Carino, that could be a lot of fun. That could be a lot of fun. Mims versus Idol versus Burchill versus Drake, again, don't even care about that match. Knox and Murdoch versus the Southern Six, not doing much for me. I've seen it twice now. What more is there to tell? The Liberty Bell Brawl, I mean, again, not super excited about that. The King Bees versus the It Girls, at least this is a new matchup, so I'm kind of excited for that, and I'm a big Ella Envy fan, so that's cool. Kenzie Page versus Max, okay. You got my attention. Max is your TV champion. That means that by cashing in now, they will no longer be the television champion, which is going to be a breath of fresh air for the NWA, giving them an opportunity to do something new with that television title. It's been suffocating for a year now. And then EC3 versus Tom Latimer. Now, we've seen that match a couple of different times. The very first of which was a ridiculous match where EC3 was trying to pull out the demons in Tom Latimer. And I was just so bored with that one. They had a pretty good match at Samhain. I'm hoping to see more of that style of wrestling between the two. And I'm, what's been the build for this match, though? 0. And maybe the build will be through the territory, the shows starting next week. But again, your pacing, your taping schedule is killing any interest I have in the 76. It really is. Because you're not building up these matches. Like the 76 should be treated as a premium live event, like our friends over at the WWE do on Peacock, where this is a 3-hour live event that if you are subscribed to Peacock, you can go watch for free. Likewise, I don't know how hard it would be. I don't know the financials, obviously. But if the CW would treat these signature live events, maybe just even an hour of a live event, like that hour for your world title match and the women's title match and maybe a real premium match, at least that would give us something to sink our teeth into, right? But we're not getting that. Signature live events are the same thing as a TV taping, and it'll be 4 months before it even airs. Or not 4 months, 4 weeks before it even airs. And I don't even know if I'll care at that point. So to answer your question, yeah, I think EC3 is a much better booker than Billy Corgan. Billy has done some things I've liked in the past, but nothing as of late that has excited me. And again, 76 just kind of, I don't know, man. I don't know. Temple's The Learning Tree says he stopped watching the NWA after the Coke thing put me off. You're not alone in that, but it just seemed like it's such a it was, look, I can understand that could affect people, especially with families, especially if there's families that have experienced, family members with addiction problems. To me, I don't watch wrestling with my kids. My kids don't really enjoy the NWA. Anyway, they don't enjoy wrestling, period. Sometimes I'll take them to a live event, but they don't really like watching it on TV. So that whole thing kind of just over my head. It didn't have the effect that a lot of people think it did. I don't think there was ever going to be the NWA on the CW television station because, again, at that point, we already knew that they were negotiating with the NXT brand from the WWE, so I don't think that was ever in peril. Willie Bowen says Slime Balls and Rolando Freeman are trash. Oh, there goes my light. What happened there? There we go. Temple says Bestia and Mecha Wolf still champions over there? No. Bestia and Mecha Wolf actually aren't even a tag team anymore. And in fact, in Mexico, in Tijuana, where Bestia is kind of a bit of a hero, he still has the La Rebellion group, and with new members, and Mecha Wolf has started a La Rebellion Black, which is another group, and they are currently rivals, and they've had a few matches in Lucha Libre AAA, but most of these matches are happening in the confines of the Tijuana auditorium in that area. David Valentine says, time for WSW to be a territory. Now, are you talking about the WSW in Australia? Because I'm all on board with that, brother. David Valentine, that's the thing you've said that has made the most sense to me since day one. Imagine, if you will, WSW, World Series of Wrestling from Australia. Currently they bring in some of the talent from AEW who are not in big time storylines like a Brian Cage, or they'll bring in stars from TNA Wrestling like Nick Nemeth or Hammerstone, and they'll bring in basically the top free agents in wrestling or people who are available and have these super big shows in Australia. Now, imagine if it was connected to the NWA somehow, and instead of having the WSW title, they had big time matches with EC3 in Australia. I think that would be pretty dope. I think that would be great. I'd be very excited about that. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it'd be really good. BFT. I don't appreciate the language, Temples, but I actually think the BFT has done a pretty good job. But I think, again, it's been a year. We're a year now on the tag champions. Actually, a little bit, a year for the tag champions, a year for the women's champion, a year for the world champion. We're a year for the women's television champion. I'm ready for something to change up. I hope 76 give us some new champions. Also, I don't want everyone to win. I don't want every title to churn over. I hate predictability in wrestling. I think that is a killer of interest. And if we're going to enjoy this event, it's got to be unpredictable. If Max wins the title, amazing. If Max loses, amazing. I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. With Tom Latimer, he is your national champion challenging the world champion. We've seen this multiple times where the national champion has surrendered the title, be it, Tom Latimer surrendered the TV title to challenge for the world title. Chris Adonis surrendered the national title to challenge for the world title. We saw Silas Mason do it. So I don't know if they're officially going to relinquish the belt, but it's a matchup that I've already seen before. So the only way that's unpredictable is if someone, something happens that we're not expecting. All that to say is I'm not holding my breath for something to be amazing this weekend. I'm just hoping to have a good time with some friends. Dodie says that Hugh hopes that Natalya wins the title. It looks a kill. Me too, man. I feel like, look, if you're not going to do that, you got to do something with Markova. Otherwise, what's the point? You just locked her up for a deal. And I'm sure Noob agrees with me. Like, the booking of Markova hasn't been great. So what are we doing? What are you doing? If you want to push Markova, push her. If you don't. But don't keep dangling the carrot. I don't know. Noob's prediction is that Markova wins the Burke, and then that's it so far. Sean Mega says EC3 versus Latimer should be a one-match episode if I was booking. Ooh, Sean, that'd be pretty awesome. Okay, now you got me. The other unpredictable thing that could happen is that maybe Richard Holiday does come to the 76. It's going to be in Philly, That wouldn't surprise me if he's there. I know he's on the East Coast. I don't know how far away he lives from the 2300 arena, but, having him show up to maybe cost EC3 the title, that would continue the feud, wouldn't it? Just saying, unpredictability is what makes wrestling fun. See that now that's ignorance talking, Temples. And I will humor some of your takes, but that's stupid. What would merging with TNA do for the NWA? How is that benefiting the National Wrestling Alliance? That's ignorant. And the Coke thing killed the NWA? No, it didn't. Just because you aren't watching it doesn't mean it's dead, dude. That's ignorant, man. you didn't see what happened in Forney. You didn't see what happened at obviously at the last event that was on the YouTube channel. The 76th anniversary show is coming up this weekend. There's lots of NWA matches, but none of it's dead. That's such a weak take. At the beginning of the show, I talked about how Shane Douglas proclaimed that the NWA was dead 7 years before he won the title. And yet, where is ECW today? It's such a weak take. Look, you might not like the NWA, and that's cool, bro. I get it. You've said it a few times that you don't care for it. Cool. But it's dead? Come on, man. That's such a weak take. You could do better than that. I heard Max can keep the title. See, that's stupid. Why? At that point, then just discontinue the titles. It's not the TV title's nothing. It should be a 2-day taping. NWA 76 should be a live pay-per-view, and the next day they can book for NWA Power. Yeah, I mean, that would be fine too. La Rebellion, look, La Rebellion has taken many faces over the few years. It's kind of a descendant of, Perros Del Mar. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, that the La Rebellion has been a gimmick that has kind of, it didn't just, it's just not Mecha Wolf and Bestia. It had a lot to do with some of the other talents that are now wrestling in WWE. But there was La Rebellion Amarilla, which is yellow. And that was they broke off from the group that they were from. And there's a long history to it, but it's not like NWO black and white and red and black, but it kind of is. I mean, there's a lot to it. Corgan will never bring in a super indie. Sean, I mean, was it predictable? Sure, but a lot of people thought that Cody was going to win it a year earlier, and he didn't. So, I mean, yeah, you want to have payoffs too, but you don't have a payoff without having some unpredictability. You know what I mean? Like it's got to have, there's got to be some give and take. We need Latimer 2 out of 3 falls. I don't want to do that to people. Bobby Petito says, I'm predicting Kylie or La Rosa Negra wins the Burke. I mean, if Kylie wins, it really sets up an interesting situation where you're putting sister versus sister. And that would be the end of that. Like, that would be a weird dichotomy. Yeah. A weak hot take. Yeah, I mean, look, it's just... You know what's dead? The AWA is dead. You know what's dead? ECW is dead. If somebody were to come to you today and say, hey, I have a great idea for a wrestling promotion. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Like, it's been done, right? Like, ECW, I mean, the heir apparent to what ECW is probably Game Changer Wrestling, right? But the spirit of ECW died when WWE purchased it, right? They brought it back. Nobody cared. It was a joke. This year is actually interesting and exciting years for the NWA as they have been so actively touring everywhere. That's a good point too, Dodie. There has been more NWA wrestling this year than there has ever been before. And although the show started in February, I mean, we've had, about 40 episodes of Power, and it hasn't had a break. There has been no stoppage, We have had a new episode every week, not a best of what happened the night before on a pay-per-view. Like, we've had a pretty consistent product. My problem is that the excitement of the existing product has been diminished without having an event that ties everything together. The 76, the Crockett Cup, these are two radically big moments for the NWA that should not just be television specials, should not just be regular TV taping. If you're going to air it on CW, and I'm still cool with that. Hell, I don't want to pay for a pay-per-view either. But imagine how much more special that moment would be if instead of it being just a regular TV episode, it was live and in color on the CW app. And I get it, Dodie, I get it. You live in Indonesia. It's a lot more difficult for you to watch the CW. It's a lot more difficult for you to watch the NWA. But if they put those live events on the CW channel, you know, as a download, but a one night only download, or I don't know. I just feel like that would be kind of cool. It would encourage a huge number of wrestling fans to watch that night, to watch in that moment. Bobby, thanks for your like, man. I do appreciate you doing that. Noob says, I don't care for Maxine Paler as champion anymore. They should be an attraction wrestler like Andre the Giant or The Undertaker. You know, the WWE put the title on The Undertaker, and it was fine. It was fine. Like, the whole world didn't come to an end. But the problem is if Max is unbeatable as a champion, which so far, I mean, and that's the other thing too, like, as television champion for the women's division, Max is a beast. Max is a monster. Max is unstoppable. Awesome. Love it. Max in the men's division is a lot more human. Max versus Jake Dumas was actually a pretty good match. Max versus Mims was actually a pretty good match. Put Max in the ring with, I don't know, Baron Von Storm. Put Max in the ring with, I don't know, Jax Dane. You tell me that Jax Dane and Maxie and Paler are going to go toe for toe in that match? No. Jax would beat them. Period. You know? And it's kind of insulting to think that nobody on the roster is willing to fight Max to win that title, to get an opportunity. Look, you win you win 8 matches and you get to the head of the line. There's nobody in the NWA except for Mims and Jake Dumas, the magician, that want to get to the head of the line. Zion doesn't want a shot at EC3. Baron Von Storm doesn't want a shot at EC3. Carson Drake doesn't want a shot at EC3. That's what kills the whole mystique of having the non-binary Nightmare hold both titles, because number one, they aren't defending them, either set of the titles. And number two, if Maxine Paler is getting a title match against Kenzie Page based on only the win or loss record that Maxine Paler has had in 2024, I don't think Maxine Paler has had but maybe one title defense in the entire calendar year. 8 months in, Maxine Paler defended the women's championship against Ella Envy. Has anyone else had a title match against Maxine Paler? I don't even know for sure. Now I want to look. So I'm going to look it up right now. Max, the Impaler. I should have typed the Impaler. Titles. So 368 days as the television champion. Maxine Paler defended the title one time against Ella Envy in 2024. Max also won the men's title in 2024 in January. So let's just look at how many matches Maxine Paler has had this year in the NWA. NWA. So Max was in the Crockett Cup. That was a tag team match. Doesn't count. Max beat Ella Envy. Okay. So that's one title defense. Maxine Paler defeated Jake Dumas. Okay, that's one men's title defense. Maxine Paler defeated Mims. That's another men's title defense. And then Max hasn't been seen with 8 months with 3 title defenses for 2 different titles. That to me doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. NWA, make it make sense. I have no problem with Maxine Paler. Max's identity doesn't bother me at all. I could care less. It doesn't sell Max as a better wrestler to me. It doesn't make Max a worse wrestler. It bottlenecks 2 divisions that are supposed to be important for crowning new world champions, and you're not doing anything with them. I think it's dumb. Bobby says he's interested to see which matches will air for Back to the Territories. I am too, man. I think it'll be exciting. I don't know where they're going to go with it. they're supposed to be crowning a new champion, and we'll see if that champion will have anything, if that will perpetuate into a title that we see more on Power, if it's more on the independents. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I've heard a lot about Megan Bain, and I don't think the NWA will be signing Megan, but keep wishing. And Allie Catch, Savannah Stone, Viperous. Well, Viperous is doing things with, I think Viperous is working with Lucha Libre AAA, so I doubt you'll see her. I'm not sure about Allie Catch. Savannah Stone. I think Savannah Stone would be the most likely out of the three, but even then, I'm not holding my breath. But that's going to do it for this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I hope you enjoyed the talk. We are introducing new merch to the NWA, to the Alliance Blog store, our merch store. The link is in the video description. If you want to help support this channel, help the financials of this channel, make this more profitable exercise for your boy Jay, check it out. Buy a hat, buy a t-shirt. We're going to be including more merchandise soon. If you are looking for an alternative to your canned energy drink, might I suggest Dubby? Dubby is a clean energy, and it helps boost your neuro factor. That makes it easier to focus in stressful situations without a lot of the jitters. I'm drinking it right now, and I feel great. It helped me get this show done today. And I have another show later tonight where I'll be interviewing Tank Tolan, who will be making his return to Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. Tank Tolan of Ohio Valley fame. If you guys want to join us for that, we'll be back here in about 2 hours from now. I hope you'll join us for that as well. And then also, we are having a title constructed. It won't be ready for the 76. It'll be here for the 77 for sure. It'll be the Alliance Blog Championship. It's not a title that will be defended. No, I'm not going to let you challenge me for the title. It is a trophy that I'm making for myself because we got 5,000 subscribers on this channel. We did that because you guys helped us with that. That was the hard work of Dave Scooby, Tim from the Alliance Gold, Jeremy from Championship Wrestling from Jeremy, DKM, Jaden, Kevin Frazier, who used to be a big part of the show, and myself. We did a lot of work to get there, and I'm very proud of it, and that's why I'm getting that title. But it won't be defended. Anyways, appreciate your time, guys. Appreciate you being a part of this this journey with us. If you do like the channel, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Also, watching those short videos do help the channel grow. It helps with the algorithm. Leaving comments on everything helps everything. We do love the engagement that you guys give us. Of course, we have a Discord channel. The conversation never stops on Discord, plus videos and photos. If you guys are excited to see what happens at the 76, make sure you're checking out our X page, our Meta page, Facebook, Instagram, Reels, our TikTok. All of those links are in the video description, and you'll see lots of stuff that's happening this weekend. But that's going to do it for us, guys. I will be back in about 2 hours to talk more wrestling with Tank Tolan. And, of course, on Thursday night, DK, Jaden, and myself will be previewing the anniversary show in a much more capable fashion. So until then, I'll see you at the matches. Thanks for checking out the pre-party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. You should hit that subscribe button and join our community. I also want to remind you that we recap NWA Power every Thursday at 8 p.m. in the live stream. We try to stay social, so find us at the Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are the Alliance.